chosen one. This is not just another random message you stumbled upon. No, this is a divine revelation sent directly from the throne room of heaven. Heaven has been watching you closely every step you take, every decision you make, every silent battle you fight within your soul. You weren't led here by chance. This is a divine appointment. Right now, heaven is breaking its silence to speak directly into your spirit because there's something urgent, something crucial that you must hear. The time has come. Are you ready to respond, or will you ignore the call? This message is not a suggestion. It is instruction from the Almighty God Himself. You were chosen for this moment. Make no mistake about it. You didn't just happen upon this message by coincidence. You were chosen. This moment, this divine encounter was orchestrated by God Himself. Every step you've taken, every trial you've faced, every whisper of doubt you've wrestled with, all of it has been leading to this exact moment. Heaven has been preparing you for what is next, and you didn't arrive here by accident. There's a purpose in this, a reason why you're hearing this right now. You're not here to just watch or listen passively. God has been guiding your path even in silence, and now He's calling you to act. You were created for a purpose, and everything in your life has been positioning you for this divine assignment. Are you ready to step into it? Chosen. 1. God is not whispering. He is shouting. The silence you've been feeling is no longer a pause. It's the calm before a storm of divine action. Heaven is breaking its silence with a command that cannot wait, a divine instruction that demands immediate obedience. This isn't a moment to ponder or procrastinate. It's a call to move now. What you do next will shape everything that follows. This is not a mere suggestion from God. This is a divine decree. Your delay could cost you. Delay is disobedience. Heaven has opened a window, and it will not stay open forever. The time to act is now. Will you step into your destiny, or let this moment slip away? Let's be brutally honest about something. God's timing is never off. You might have spent years wondering when the breakthrough would come, questioning why things aren't happening the way you imagined. But hear me loud and clear. Everything you've experienced has been part of a perfect divine plan. Every challenge you've faced, every trial you've endured, every tear you've shed, it's been a part of your preparation. God has been watching you, not just from a distance, but intimately, carefully. Every choice you've made, every step you've taken, every moment of doubt and faith, nothing has been in vain. If you think about it, every disappointment, every setback has served a purpose. You've thought you were stuck, but God has been moving you in ways you can't even see yet. While you've been waiting for the right time to act, God has been working behind the scenes, shaping you into who you need to be for what's coming next. He has been preparing you for a moment like this. Don't get it twisted. This is not a coincidence. This is no accident. The experiences you've had, the pain you've endured, the strength you've gained, even the confusion you felt, it's all part of His preparation. God doesn't waste time. Every moment you've spent wondering why you're still waiting has been building you, even when you couldn't see it. God knew the timing even when you doubted the purpose. And now the time is upon you. Do you realize what this means? God has been observing you not from afar, but intimately, with the knowledge of exactly what you can handle and when you can handle it. You've been walking through your trials not by accident, but by design. Every step has been a test. Every moment has been shaping your character. And now you're standing in a season where you must take action, not wait for perfect conditions. The window of opportunity is here, and it's time to step into what God has already prepared. Psalm 31:15. My times are in your hands. This verse is your confirmation. God has been holding your time, your destiny, your future in His hands the entire time. You may have felt lost or off course, but all along God was orchestrating every detail of your journey to bring you to this very moment. Now that moment is here. Will you move forward with His timing, or will you let doubt and fear keep you in the waiting room? The preparation is done. It's time to step into your purpose. This is God's perfect timing, and you've been positioned for this moment. Let's get one thing straight. Delayed obedience is disobedience. I don't care how good your intentions are, how many excuses you have, or how much you think you're waiting for a sign. The instruction has already been given. Heaven has spoken, and now it's time for you to act. God is not playing games with you. This isn't some vague suggestion that you can just consider later. It's a command from the Almighty, and it requires immediate action. When God speaks, the time to respond is now. You cannot afford to hesitate. The urgency of the moment demands your obedience, and if you wait, you risk walking in disobedience. That delay you think is harmless. It's not. It's a silent rebellion. God has opened the door for you, but if you stand there waiting for everything to align perfectly, that door will close and you'll miss the opportunity He has prepared for you. We all know what happens when we delay. We miss out. You think that procrastination is harmless, that it'll just be a minor delay in your journey. Think again. There are consequences to waiting too long. It's not just about later being harder. It's about missing out on God's timing altogether. The Israelites were called to enter the Promised Land, and while God had prepared the way, their delay in obeying Him resulted in 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. Do you want to find yourself stuck in an endless cycle, wondering why you're not moving forward? The time to act is now, and your obedience today determines whether or not you'll step into the promises God has for you. James 4:17. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it for him, it is sin. That's as clear as it gets. If you know what God is asking you to do, and you don't act, you are walking in disobedience. It's that simple. God has not called you to sit idly by, waiting for the perfect moment to act. This is your moment. Obey now, or face the consequences of missing out on what God has for you. The choice is yours. But let me warn you, delay doesn't just postpone your blessing. It could cost you everything. Don't let fear or doubt convince you to wait. Obedience is the key to your breakthrough. You don't need to know the whole journey. You don't need to understand every step ahead. What you need is to take the first step now. Stop waiting for your conditions to change. God is waiting for your obedience. Will you step into His will, or will you keep delaying and risk missing everything He has for you? The time is now. Your obedience is critical. Listen carefully. Heaven has opened a window for you, but you need to understand this. It will not stay open forever. This moment, this opportunity is fleeting. You've been given a divine chance to step into something greater. Something God has been preparing for you for far longer than you realize. But here's the truth. Windows close. They don't stay open indefinitely. The time you have to act is limited, and if you hesitate or hold back, the window will shut, and you'll find yourself standing on the outside looking in. Do you know how many times people have missed their divine moment because they were waiting for a better time or more signs? They missed it. The opportunity passed, and by the time they realized it, the door was closed. If you don't act now, the moment will slip away, and once it's gone, you may never get it again. God doesn't waste time, and He doesn't give endless second chances. This is your moment to respond. Will you seize it, or will you watch it slip by? In the Bible, we see plenty of examples of God opening doors of opportunity, but the ones who missed out were the ones who didn't act swiftly enough. The Israelites stood at the edge of their promise, and when they hesitated, they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. One delay, one moment of indecision, and an entire generation missed the blessings God had waiting for them. The window was open, but they weren't ready to walk through it. Luke 13:25. When once the master of the house has risen and shut the door, you begin to stand outside and knock at the door, saying, "Lord, open to us." But He will answer you, "I do not know where you come from." This is the reality of delayed obedience. When the door is closed, it's closed. The opportunity is gone. But you're not at the mercy of waiting. You are in control of whether or not you walk through the door that's been opened for you. Don't stand outside knocking while others move forward. Don't let the window close on your breakthrough. The window is open for a reason. God has positioned you for something greater, and He's given you the opportunity to step into it now. But He won't hold it open forever. Time is running out, and the urgency is real. Will you step in, or will you be left behind as the window closes? This is your divine opportunity. Don't let it pass you by. You've been feeling it, haven't you? The weight, the tension, the pressure that seems to be pushing down on you from all sides. You thought it was stress, maybe even something you're doing wrong. But let me set the record straight. This is not stress. This is divine activation. What you're feeling is God Himself stirring you up, preparing you for something bigger than you've ever known. The pressure you're under is not meant to break you. It's meant to shape you. It's not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're being transformed. Spiritual pressure isn't comfortable, and it's not supposed to be, but it's purposeful. Every moment of tension you're experiencing is God's way of stretching you, refining you, and building in you the capacity to step into your divine assignment. You're not under attack. You're under construction. What feels like discomfort is actually the process of your transformation. Think about it. Diamonds don't form without intense pressure. Gold doesn't shine without being refined by fire. And you, yes, you are being prepared in the same way. The pressure you're feeling is the fire that's purifying your soul, the refining process that's shaping your spirit for the next level. What feels unbearable now is actually the exact thing that's going to carry you into the breakthrough you've been waiting for. God doesn't waste pain. He doesn't waste pressure. He uses it. Every ounce of tension you're experiencing is preparing you for your purpose. The discomfort, the sense of being stretched too thin, the internal battles, it's all part of the process of transformation. God is doing something in you right now that you can't fully comprehend. But when you look back on this moment, you'll realize that this pressure was the catalyst for your greatest growth. Romans 5:3-4. We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. This is the process. This is what God is building in you. The pressure you're feeling is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to redefine you. You're not being crushed. You're being forged. And when the transformation is complete, you'll step into your calling stronger, sharper, and more prepared than ever before. You might not feel it now, but you're in the middle of a spiritual activation. God is stirring something deep within you, something that will awaken your true purpose and potential. Don't resist the pressure. Embrace it. Trust the process. God is preparing you for what's next. You're being activated for a purpose far greater than you can imagine. Keep pushing through because your breakthrough is coming. What if I told you that the very thing you've been trying to avoid, the pressure, is the key to your breakthrough? You've been feeling the heat, haven't you? The weight, the intensity, the moments where it feels like everything is pushing against you. But here's the truth. You need to hear this. Pressure has purpose. It's not a sign that God has forgotten you. It's proof that He is refining you. God doesn't let you experience pressure just for the sake of it. He allows it because He's shaping you. Just as gold doesn't shine without the fire, you won't step into your full potential without the intensity of the trials you're facing right now. Pressure is the divine tool of transformation. It's the thing that burns away the impurities, the fears, and the doubts that have been holding you back. It's what builds your character, strengthens your spirit, and enlarges your capacity for what's coming next. Think about it. Every great leader, every warrior of faith has gone through immense pressure before they saw the fruit of their labor. David was anointed king, but he spent years running from Saul, enduring intense pressure and pain. Moses was called to lead millions, but first he had to endure the harsh wilderness. And Esther, chosen to save a nation, had to risk her life and confront fear head-on. They didn't just get a free pass to greatness. They were refined in the fire. Isaiah 48:10. Behold, I have refined you, but not as silver. I have tried you in the furnace of affliction. God is refining you in the furnace of affliction right now. The fire may be intense, but it's not meant to burn you. It's meant to make you stronger. The more pressure you feel, the closer you are to your next level. You are in the process of being shaped into someone who can carry the weight of your divine calling. What you're experiencing right now is not punishment, it's preparation. The intensity you feel is God's way of getting you ready for something greater. And here's the thing, you won't stay in this pressure forever. The storm will pass, the fire will subside, but you will emerge stronger, refined, and more prepared than you were before. This is how God works. He uses the very thing that seems to be crushing you to build you up into something unstoppable. So, don't run from the pressure. Don't try to avoid the discomfort. Embrace it. Trust that God is using it for your good, for your growth, and for your transformation. This is your refining moment. Let it do its work. Your breakthrough is being forged in the fire, and when you emerge from it, you'll be stronger, wiser, and ready to step into everything God has prepared for you. The pressure is purposeful. Trust it. Embrace it. Your destiny is being formed right now. Listen to me carefully. The season has shifted. What you once knew, the patterns that seemed so familiar, the ways you used to navigate through life are no longer enough for where God is taking you. Heaven has marked a new season, and you can either resist it or you can align yourself with what God is doing right now. The shift is here, and it's time for you to move in step with it. You've felt it, haven't you? The inner stirring, the sense that something is changing within you and around you. The old strategies, the old ways of thinking, they're not working anymore. God is doing a new thing, and this new thing is beyond your understanding and your control. It's not a small shift. It's a divine realignment. The very Spirit of God is moving, and it's time for you to move with it. The problem is that many of us want to hold on to the past, to keep doing what worked before, even when God has clearly moved us into a new season. But if you keep holding on to yesterday, you'll miss the miracles that are waiting for you today. You've got to let go of what was and step into what is. God is no longer working in the way you expected, and if you don't adapt to this new season, you'll find yourself out of sync with His plans. Isaiah 43:19. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth, do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. This is God's promise for you today. He is doing something new, and it's springing forth right now. You may not see it clearly yet, but it's happening in the Spirit. And the question is, will you perceive it? Will you align yourself with what He's doing? Or will you keep fighting the change? Alignment with God's will isn't passive. It's active participation. You have to shift your mindset, your heart, and your actions to match where God is moving. This means being open to change, willing to adapt, and courageous enough to leave behind the familiar. The season has shifted, and the only way to keep pace with God is to align yourself with His timing, His purpose, and His plan. You're not walking into this new season blindfolded. God is lighting the way. He's already gone before you, preparing the path. But you need to move in sync with Him. This isn't a time for hesitation or fear. The season of waiting is over. The shift is here. Will you align with God's new direction, or will you be left behind? Remember, when the Spirit shifts, the entire atmosphere changes. Don't be the one who misses it because you're stuck in yesterday's mindset. Align with what God is doing right now, because this new season is where your breakthrough is waiting. Don't let fear or uncertainty keep you in the past. Step forward in faith and walk in the alignment that God has set before you. Let's stop playing games with yourself. Readiness is not about how you feel. It's not about waking up one day and suddenly feeling 100% confident, ready to conquer the world. That's a lie. Readiness is about your position. It's a heart posture, a spiritual alignment, and a willingness to step out even when fear and uncertainty are screaming at you. Confidence, that will come later. But readiness, that's about where you stand before God right now. You see, we've been conditioned to think that we have to feel ready before we take action. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell. Don't let the world tell you that you have to feel ready. David wasn't ready to fight Goliath when he stepped onto the battlefield. Joseph wasn't ready to lead a nation while he was in prison. Esther wasn't ready to risk her life for a nation, yet she did. Readiness isn't about feeling like you can conquer the world. It's about positioning yourself to step into God's will, regardless of how unqualified you feel. Feelings lie. Confidence will fail you when the pressure is on. But obedience will carry you through. When God calls you, He doesn't wait for you to feel confident. He waits for you to say yes, even when the doubts are screaming. Readiness is the ability to move, not because you have all the answers, but because you trust that God will meet you where you stand. The reality is that God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to start the journey. Look at the Bible. How many times did God call people who didn't feel ready? Moses was a stuttering man who didn't feel capable of leading Israel out of Egypt. Gideon was hiding in fear when God called him to lead Israel to victory. But in each case, they were chosen not because of their qualifications, but because of their willingness to position themselves in obedience. When God calls, He doesn't wait for your feelings to align. He waits for your surrender. Luke 9:62. Jesus replied, "No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God." This is about forward movement, even when you don't feel fully ready. Stop waiting for the perfect moment or the surge of confidence to hit you. The moment is now, and your readiness is a choice to stand in obedience to trust and to walk in the direction God is calling you, even if your knees are shaking and your heart is racing. What you're feeling is irrelevant to what God is doing. What matters is your position. Will you trust that God is enough even when you don't feel enough? Will you step forward into the unknown, knowing that He will meet you every step of the way? Your readiness is in your obedience, not your feelings. Get in position, move forward, and let God turn your willingness into the readiness that will lead you into your divine purpose. Let's take a moment to look at the biblical heavyweights who didn't have it all figured out, but still chose obedience over hesitation. David, Joseph, and Esther. These three didn't wait until they felt ready or confident. They acted with raw faith, moving in obedience despite their fears, doubts, and uncertainties. And guess what? God showed up in miraculous ways when they made that decision. David wasn't ready by the world's standards when he stepped onto that battlefield to face Goliath. A young shepherd boy with no armor, no battle experience, and certainly no confidence in the eyes of others, he was supposed to be tending sheep, not fighting giants. Yet when God called him, he didn't hesitate. In 1 Samuel 17:45, David boldly declared, "You come against me with a sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty." He didn't wait to feel ready. He moved in obedience, knowing that God had equipped him for the task. And look at the result. David defeated a giant, and from that moment, his destiny was sealed. His readiness wasn't in his feelings, but in his willingness to act on God's call. Joseph, on the other hand, was locked away in prison, a young man with dreams of greatness, but absolutely no clarity on how they would come to pass. He didn't understand why his brothers sold him, why he was falsely accused, or why he was stuck in an Egyptian prison. Yet in the middle of all that confusion, Joseph stayed faithful. He didn't wait until he could see the full picture. He didn't wait for his confidence to catch up. He obeyed God no matter the circumstances. And in the end, his obedience led him to a position of power where he saved a nation from famine. Genesis 50:20 shows us his heart when he said to his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Joseph's obedience brought him into alignment with God's plan, even when it didn't make sense. Esther was another woman who stepped into the unknown with courage, even when she didn't feel fully ready. The Bible doesn't paint her as someone brimming with confidence, yet she chose to act when the fate of her people rested on her shoulders. Esther 4:16 reveals her decision to risk her life, saying, "If I perish, I perish." She didn't have all the answers, she wasn't certain of the outcome, and she definitely wasn't fearless. But she knew that obedience in the moment was more important than waiting for clarity or comfort. Her willingness to move in faith saved her people, and her story stands as a testament to the power of obedience when everything seems uncertain. Each of these individuals had one thing in common. They acted in obedience despite not feeling ready. They didn't wait for the perfect circumstances or the surge of confidence to fill them. They didn't wait until they could see the whole plan unfold. They trusted God enough to step forward, and that's what made all the difference. God doesn't require your confidence to move forward. He requires your obedience. So when you look at your own life and feel unprepared, uncertain, or unqualified, remember David, Joseph, and Esther. Their readiness wasn't found in how they felt. It was found in their willingness to trust God and take action no matter the circumstances. God can use your obedience today to open doors of destiny tomorrow. It's time for you to stop waiting for clarity or confidence and start moving in faith just like they did. Let's get real for a second. Fear will always try to stop you. It doesn't matter what you're called to do. The enemy knows that fear can paralyze you faster than anything else. You will feel uncertain, and doubt will creep in, like a shadow whispering all the reasons why you shouldn't move. But here's what you need to understand. Faith is always more powerful than fear. Your fear does not define you, and your uncertainty doesn't have to control you. When God calls you to step out, obedience is the key, even when you don't have the full picture. You might be looking at your circumstances, and everything inside of you is screaming, "This doesn't make sense. How could this possibly work?" That's where your faith kicks in. Faith moves even when it doesn't see the whole journey. It steps out in obedience, knowing that God's timing is always perfect, even if you don't fully understand it. Think about Abraham, who was called to leave everything he knew and follow God into the unknown. He didn't have a clear map of where he was going, just a command from God, "Go to the land I will show you." Genesis 12. God didn't give him all the details, but Abraham obeyed. And because of his faith, God promised to make him the father of many nations. Faith over fear opened doors to blessings Abraham never could have imagined. He didn't wait until he felt confident or certain. He simply trusted in God's timing and went. Then there's Peter, stepping out of the boat onto the water to walk toward Jesus. Matthew 14:29 says, "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. Peter didn't have all the answers. In fact, everything in him probably screamed to stay in the safety of the boat. But his faith took him further than his fear ever could. It wasn't until he took his eyes off Jesus that he began to sink. But when he focused on Christ, he walked on water. Fear can make you doubt, but faith will always propel you forward, even when you feel uncertain. Fear will tell you all the reasons why you can't move. It will lie to you, telling you that you're not equipped, not capable, not good enough. But faith doesn't need perfection. Faith only needs your willingness to move. If you're obedient, God will make a way, even when the path seems unclear. You don't need to see the full journey. You only need to take the next step. Trust in His timing. Even if it feels uncomfortable or uncertain, God has already gone ahead of you and prepared the way. Psalm 37:23-24. The Lord makes firm the steps of the one who delights in Him. Though he may stumble, he will not fall, for the Lord upholds him with His hand. God's timing is always perfect. He will hold you steady, even when you're unsure. The key is obedience, no matter how shaky your steps might feel. When fear rises up, let your faith rise even higher. So when uncertainty comes knocking, choose faith. Step forward, even when you're trembling. Trust that God's timing is far greater than your fear. Your obedience in the face of fear will unlock doors that you never thought possible. Don't let fear rob you of the breakthrough waiting on the other side of your obedience. The time to act is now, and your faith in God's perfect timing will lead you to a destiny far beyond anything you could ever plan on your own. It's time to face the truth. You can't move forward while still holding on to the past. God is calling you to release what no longer serves your purpose. You've been clinging to relationships, habits, and mindsets that are holding you back, and it's time to let go. I know it's hard. It always is when something familiar is about to be released. But hear me when I say this. What God has in store for you requires space that cannot be filled by the past. The weight of the past. Whether it's past hurts, toxic relationships, or the habits that keep you stuck, has been dragging you down. And right now, God is calling you to cut those chains. The mindset you've been holding on to, the comfort of what you know, is preventing you from stepping into the future that God is calling you to. If you want to move into your divine purpose, you have to leave behind what no longer aligns with where He's taking you. Let's talk about relationships for a moment. Not every person in your life is meant to go where God is taking you. There are relationships that suck the life out of you, that keep you stuck in cycles of negativity, doubt, and fear. You know who they are. God is asking you to release them. I'm not saying it will be easy. You may feel guilty, like you're abandoning people who've been in your life for years. But God is calling you to prioritize your destiny over your comfort zone. Proverbs 13:20. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Some relationships have kept you from growing into who God has created you to be. They keep you tethered to old patterns, to old wounds, and to the familiar. But you can't move forward if you're still tethered to the past. If it's not helping you grow, if it's not moving you toward your purpose, it's time to let go. Next, let's talk about habits. You know the ones I'm talking about, the things you do without thinking that are hindering your growth. Bad habits don't just disappear on their own. If you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always gotten. Some of those habits are comforting, yes, but they're also keeping you stuck. They're tying you to a past version of yourself that God has already moved past. God is calling you to break free from the chains of these habits and make room for healthier, life-giving practices that align with His plan for you. Ephesians 4:22-24. You were taught, with regard to your former way of life, to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. You've got to put off the old to put on the new. God is ready to transform you, but you have to let go of the habits that no longer serve your purpose. Finally, mindsets. The way you've been thinking about yourself, about others, about your circumstances, it's time to shift your perspective. You've been holding on to limiting beliefs, self-doubt, and fears that don't align with who God says you are. You've been living under the weight of old labels, convinced that you're not enough, or that your past defines you. But God says no more. Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Your thinking has to change before your life can change. You can't step into the new season God has for you if you're still living under the weight of old thought patterns. God is calling you to renew your mind, to see yourself as He sees you, fearfully and wonderfully equipped, called worthy. Letting go isn't just about physical things. It's about your heart posture and your mindset. It's about making room for what God wants to do in your life now. It's time to release the old so you can fully embrace the new. You can't walk into your future if you're still holding on to things that no longer serve you. The longer you hold on to the past, the longer you delay your destiny. Let go, trust God. Move forward, because the future He has for you is so much greater than anything you've left behind. Here's the harsh reality. Growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. If you're waiting for the perfect, cozy circumstances to step into what God has called you to do, you're going to be waiting forever. Growth requires stretching, and stretching by nature is uncomfortable. But what you need to understand is that the discomfort you're feeling is a sign that you're growing, that God is expanding your capacity to handle what's coming next. New assignments, new callings, they'll stretch you in ways you didn't think were possible. They'll push you beyond what you thought you could endure. They'll challenge your limits, force you to confront your fears, and bring you face to face with parts of yourself that you've been trying to avoid. But that's exactly where God does His best work, in the uncomfortable. God isn't interested in keeping you in your comfort zone because He knows there's more in you than you realize. The person you are today isn't the person He's calling you to be tomorrow. To step into the fullness of your destiny, you've got to allow God to stretch you, even when it feels like it's too much. Look at Jabez, a man who prayed a bold prayer in 1 Chronicles 4:10. Oh, that you would bless me and enlarge my territory. Jabez didn't ask for comfort. He asked for expansion, and God answered his prayer. But here's the kicker: territory isn't enlarged without a challenge. It takes stretching to occupy more space, more responsibility, more influence. When God stretches you, it's not because He wants to overwhelm you. It's because He's preparing you for something greater. The territory you're about to step into won't fit your old mindset, your old habits, or your old comfort zone. Joseph was another example of someone whose growth came through extreme stretching. He was a dreamer, and yet his path to greatness was anything but easy. From being sold into slavery to being falsely accused to spending years in prison, Joseph's journey was anything but comfortable. But every single stretch he endured, every uncomfortable moment, was preparing him to rule over Egypt and save his family from famine. Joseph's capacity grew because he endured the stretching. He was no longer just a boy with dreams. He became a man of wisdom, authority, and purpose. Your stretching is preparing you to carry more than you think you can handle. Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. All things. Not just the easy things, not just the things that feel comfortable, but all things, the hard things, the things that stretch you beyond what you thought possible, the things that require every ounce of your faith. God doesn't call you to the easy. He calls you to the extraordinary, and that requires a level of stretching that's going to increase your capacity. Esther, too, had to stretch beyond her comfort zone when she risked her life to approach the king and save her people. She didn't feel ready, but her obedience to God's call stretched her in ways she never imagined. It required stepping into a realm of courage she didn't know she had. But that stretching gave her the capacity to lead a nation in a time of crisis. She was no longer just a queen. She was a deliverer called to step into a purpose far bigger than herself. Here's the truth you need to embrace. Your growth is in the stretch. Every time God calls you to take on something new, you will be stretched. And in that stretch, you'll find your true capacity. You'll be pushed beyond your limits. And when you step into what God has for you, you'll realize that the person you were yesterday couldn't possibly carry the weight of today's assignment. Stretching isn't comfortable, but it's necessary. If you want more influence, more responsibility, more opportunities, then you have to be willing to stretch beyond your comfort zone and trust that God will increase your capacity to handle it. You were made for this, and once you step into that uncomfortable stretch, you'll see that the growth you've been longing for was waiting for you all along. So embrace the stretch. Trust God in the process. Because when you step into the discomfort, you step into your destiny. The best version of you is on the other side of the stretch. Let me make something crystal clear. Faith is not passive. Faith is not sitting around waiting for everything to fall into place, for your circumstances to suddenly change, or for the right moment to show up. That's not faith. That's fear disguised as patience. Faith requires action. It's not about waiting for things to be perfect. It's about moving forward in the direction God has called you, even when you don't have all the answers. It's about trusting Him enough to take that first step, even if it feels like you're walking into the unknown. Faith is not a feeling, it's a choice. It's a decision to move to act, to step out in trust that God will meet you along the way. Every major story of faith in the Bible shows us that God doesn't bless hesitation. He blesses obedience, decisive, bold, faith-filled action. When God speaks, He doesn't just want you to acknowledge His call. He wants you to act on it. Faith without works is dead. James 2:26. You can believe all day long that God is calling you to something great, but until you take that step in faith, nothing will change. Take Abraham, for example. When God told him to leave everything he knew and go to a land He would show him, Abraham didn't sit around asking, Well, how will I know when I get there? Or what exactly do I need to pack? He didn't waste time questioning God's timing or his plans. Abraham went decisively and without hesitation. Hebrews 11:8 tells us, by faith Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. Abraham's faith wasn't about waiting for the full map. It was about moving when God said, go. Then there's Noah. God told him to build an ark in a place that had never seen rain. Can you imagine the ridicule, the uncertainty? Noah didn't wait for rain clouds to appear. He didn't question God's timing or ask for signs. He built the ark in faith. He took action even when there was no logical reason to do so. And because of his obedience, he was saved from the flood. His faith led to action, and his action led to salvation. Genesis 6:22 says Noah did everything just as God commanded him. He didn't hesitate. He acted on God's word without delay. And let's talk about the woman with the issue of blood. Mark 5:34. She had suffered for years, and according to the law, she was considered unclean, unable to approach anyone in a public setting. But she didn't wait for permission. She didn't wait for someone to heal her, and she certainly didn't wait for things to be easy. She pushed through the crowd, reached out in faith, and touched the hem of Jesus' garment. She didn't wait for Jesus to approach her. She took action. And in that action, her faith made her whole. What do these stories have in common? They show us that faith requires movement. God doesn't call you to sit idly by while he works around you. He calls you to step out in faith, even when you don't see the full picture, even when you don't understand how it will work out. He calls for decisive steps of faith, trusting that he will meet you where you are. You've been waiting for your circumstances to change before you act, but that's not how faith works. Faith is acting first, then trusting God to make a way. It's about stepping out, even when everything within you is screaming to hold back. God is calling you to take action, to move in the direction he has set for you, regardless of how uncertain or unprepared you may feel. It's in that decisive step that God will meet you and guide you. God is waiting on your action. Faith without action is just a dream. What do you need to do today to step forward in faith? What is God calling you to do that requires action on your part? It's time to stop waiting. Take the first step, even if you don't know exactly where it will lead. Your action will activate God's power to move in your life. Hebrews 11:1. Now, faith is the confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. If you're waiting for things to line up perfectly before you move, you're not living in faith. True faith is moving before you see the full picture, knowing that God will lead you every step of the way. Take action. Your breakthrough is on the other side of your obedience. Let me be brutally honest with you. Delay is dangerous. It might seem like a harmless choice, something you can afford to do for a little while longer. But what you're really doing is choosing stagnation over movement. Hesitation doesn't just delay your progress, it risks your destiny. When you put off acting on God's call, you're not just wasting time, you're opening the door to missed opportunities and prolonged struggles that could have been avoided had you taken action when God first spoke. You might think it's okay to wait a little longer. I'm not ready yet. The timing isn't perfect. That's the lie of delay. The enemy will convince you that there's always time for tomorrow. But the truth is, tomorrow often never comes. When God gives you an instruction, the time to act is always now. Every moment of delay is a moment where God's perfect plan could be disrupted. You are not guaranteed tomorrow, and when you delay, you risk missing the moment God has prepared for you. Think about the Israelites. God promised them the promised land, and He opened the door for them to walk in. But they hesitated. They doubted. They let fear control their decision-making, and instead of stepping into God's promise, they wandered for 40 years in the wilderness. One act of delay, one moment of hesitation, turned into decades of struggle. One decision to wait cost them an entire generation of blessings. Deuteronomy 1:26-27. But you were unwilling to go up. You rebelled against the command of the Lord your God. You grumbled in your tents and said, "The Lord hates us, so He brought us out of Egypt to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites, to destroy us." The Israelites missed their opportunity because they delayed. They let fear and doubt dictate their actions, and because of that, they suffered for years. Delay doesn't just postpone your blessings, it can prolong your pain. And then there's Saul, who was given a clear instruction by God through Samuel to wait for 7 days before making a sacrifice before battle. But Saul, fearing that his army would scatter, decided to act before the time was right. He disobeyed, and because of his hesitation, he lost his kingdom. 1 Samuel 13:14. You have done a foolish thing. Samuel said, You have not kept the command the Lord your God gave you. If you had, He would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. Saul's delay in obedience cost him everything. One moment of hesitation, and the door to his destiny was closed. Let's not forget Moses. When he struck the rock, in frustration, instead of speaking to it, as God commanded, it wasn't just a small mistake. That act of hesitation, of not following God's exact instructions, meant he couldn't enter the promised land. Numbers 20:12. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, Because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them. That delay, that moment of doubt, kept Moses from the very promise he'd led his people to. Do you see the pattern? Hesitation leads to missed opportunities. When you don't act in the moment, when you delay out of fear, doubt, or uncertainty, you're not just postponing your blessing, you're delaying God's work in your life. And here's the hardest truth. Sometimes when you delay, you can miss the opportunity entirely. God will always have a plan for your life, but He won't wait forever for you to step into it. Delay doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone connected to you. When you hesitate, you hold up progress, not just for yourself, but for those who are waiting for you to step into the role God has for you. You may not realize it, but your delay is impacting your family, your community, your destiny. You have a responsibility to move when God says move. Proverbs 14:23. All hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. When you delay, you risk being stuck in the same place, repeating the same struggles, and missing out on the reward that comes with taking action. Delay leads to stagnation and ultimately to a life that falls short of what God intended for you. So, here's the question you need to ask yourself today. What are you delaying? What has God called you to do that you've been putting off because you don't feel ready or because you're afraid of failure? The cost of delay is higher than you think. Don't let fear, uncertainty, or a false sense of security keep you from stepping into the plan God has already prepared for you. The time to act is now. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Don't delay. Your breakthrough, your promise, your destiny is waiting on the other side of your obedience. Step in, step out, and trust that God will meet you there. The story of the Israelites and their delay in entering the promised land is a sobering reminder of the dangers of hesitation and fear when it comes to obeying God's call. After being delivered from slavery in Egypt and spending 40 years wandering in the wilderness, the Israelites stood on the edge of their promise, the land flowing with milk and honey, a land they had been promised by God. But when the moment came for them to take possession of what was rightfully theirs, they hesitated. God had already prepared the land for them. He had given them victory after victory. But when it came time to move forward, the fear of the unknown and the challenges that lay ahead caused them to hesitate. They sent spies into the land to assess it, and 10 out of the 12 spies came back with a fearful report. They focused on the giants in the land and the fortified cities, and they said, "We can't do this. The people are stronger than us, and the land is too dangerous." Numbers 13, 31 to 33. Only Joshua and Caleb, two of the spies, had the faith to say, "We can certainly do it." Numbers 13:30. But the fear and hesitation of the majority led to a disastrous decision. Because of their lack of faith and their unwillingness to move forward in obedience, God delayed their entry into the promised land. Numbers 14:26 to 30 shows the consequences of their hesitation. "Not one of you will enter the land. I swore with uplifted hand to make your home, except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun." Their delay in trusting God and stepping into the promise kept them wandering in the wilderness for 40 more years until the entire generation that had doubted God's promise died off. This is a powerful warning for us today. The Israelites' hesitation, their inability to trust God's word and act in faith, cost them their future, and it delayed their destiny for an entire generation. What was meant to be a swift journey into a promised land became an extended struggle in the wilderness, not because God's promises had changed, but because they failed to act on what God had already spoken to them. Hesitation in the face of God's promises leads to unnecessary delays. The longer you wait, the longer you prolong the blessings God has already prepared for you. When God opens a door for you, the time to step through it is now, because delaying obedience can result in missing out on the fulfillment of His promises. The Israelites' failure to act in faith teaches us that delaying action out of fear can cause us to miss opportunities and extend our seasons of struggle. The promise didn't change, but their ability to walk into it was delayed because of their refusal to trust God fully. They allowed their fears and doubts to override their faith, and as a result, an entire generation lost the opportunity to see God's promises fulfilled in their lives. This is not just a historical lesson. It's a warning for you today. What has God called you to do that you're delaying? What promise is waiting for you on the other side of your hesitation? Don't let fear, doubt, or uncertainty cause you to wander in the wilderness of missed opportunities. Step into the promise God has for you, because delay can lead to lost time, prolonged struggles, and missed blessings. Take action today. Don't let fear and hesitation steal your future. Trust God's promises, move forward in faith, and step into your destiny. Here's the incredible truth you need to embrace, even when you've delayed, even when you've hesitated. God's mercy is waiting to realign you with His will. The beauty of God's mercy is that it is never dependent on your timing or perfection. It doesn't matter how far you feel you've fallen behind or how many opportunities you've missed. God's mercy allows you to realign with His purpose and step back into His will, no matter how long you've been wandering. Take a moment to really soak that in. God is merciful. Even when you've hesitated, even when you've ignored His promptings, even when you've taken the long road instead of the path He set for you. His mercy is there, waiting to restore you, to redirect you, and to put you back on track for the purpose He's called you to fulfill. The Israelites are once again a perfect example. Even though their disobedience and delay caused them to wander in the wilderness for 40 years, God didn't give up on them. He could have turned His back on them, wiped them out for their refusal to trust Him, but He didn't. Instead, He gave them a chance to realign with His plan. In Deuteronomy 33:5, God promises, "Then the Lord your God will restore your fortunes and have compassion on you, and gather you again from all the nations where He scattered you. Even if you have been banished to the most distant land under the heavens from there, the Lord your God will gather you and bring you back." God allowed the Israelites to realign with His will, to move forward into the land He had promised them, even after all the years of delay. That's the power of God's mercy. No matter how far off course you may have gotten, He will bring you back. No matter how long you've delayed, He will restore the time lost and put you back on the path of purpose. If you've wandered off track, His mercy is the key that unlocks the door of realignment. Jonah provides another powerful illustration of God's mercy and realignment. God gave Jonah a clear assignment to go to Nineveh and preach repentance. But Jonah hesitated, ran in the opposite direction, and found himself in a storm, swallowed by a great fish and facing the consequences of his disobedience. But even in Jonah's worst moment, God's mercy brought him back to His will. Jonah 2:10 says, "And the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land." Jonah's delay didn't disqualify him. God's mercy restored him, gave him a second chance, and sent him to Nineveh to fulfill the calling on his life. God's mercy works in the same way for you today. Your delay, your hesitation, your mistakes don't disqualify you from His plans. He's calling you to realign with His will, no matter how far you've strayed, no matter how long you've waited. You are never beyond the reach of His mercy. Here's something that should give you incredible peace. When God calls you to move, He doesn't just send you out on your own. He covers you. He equips you. He provides everything you need to not just survive, but to thrive in the mission He's called you to. His provision and protection are not optional. They are a promise. When God gives you an assignment, whether it's a new job, a ministry, a relationship, or a radical life change, He doesn't expect you to do it on your own. God will always provide what you need to carry out His will. You're never going to walk into something that God hasn't already gone ahead of you to prepare. His provision isn't just material, it's spiritual, emotional, relational, and physical. It's the peace when you're anxious, the strength when you're weak, and the wisdom when you don't have all the answers. He'll provide everything you need in every area of your life. Abraham experienced this divine provision and protection when God called him to leave his home and go to a land he had never seen. God didn't give Abraham the full picture right away, but he promised him, "Go, and I will bless you. I will make your name great." Genesis 12:2-3. Every step Abraham took, in faith God provided. When he went through famine, God gave him the resources he needed. When he faced danger, God protected him. God didn't send Abraham into the unknown without his covering. He provided for him every step of the way. And the same promise holds true for you. Moses had to lead millions of Israelites out of Egypt, but God didn't just tell him to go. He provided the way. When Moses was standing at the edge of the Red Sea, with Pharaoh's army closing in, it seemed like an impossible situation. But in that moment, God provided the miracle. He parted the Red Sea, Exodus 14:21-22. When Moses was called to lead a nation, God didn't just tell him to step out in faith and leave him to figure it out on his own. He provided everything Moses needed: protection, direction, and supernatural provision. When God calls you to something, He doesn't leave you stranded. He makes a way. The Israelites again provide a beautiful example of God's provision and protection. When they were wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, God provided manna from heaven to feed them daily. Exodus 16:4. Their clothes never wore out, and their shoes never became too tight. Deuteronomy 29:5. God didn't just get them out of Egypt. He took care of them every single day. In the wilderness, He was their provider and their protector. And if God can provide and protect His people in the wilderness, He can certainly do the same for you in your journey. But here's the thing: God's provision and protection are tied to obedience. God will provide for you, but you need to move when He says move. When the Israelites were instructed to take the promised land, they had to trust God and move forward in faith. God didn't part the waters for them until they stepped into the river, Joshua 3:15-17. God's protection and provision come when you step out in faith, when you trust Him enough to obey His command, even when you can't see how it will work out. Philippians 4:19 is clear. And my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of His glory in Christ Jesus. All your needs: spiritual, emotional, financial, physical. God has already accounted for everything you will need on this journey. He knows the challenges ahead, and He is already preparing the resources, protection, and strength you will need to overcome them. So, if you're hesitating or worried about the provision for what God has called you to do, don't be. You're not stepping out on your own. God is right there, going ahead of you, preparing the way. His covering is upon you, and He will supply everything you need. Trust Him. Step out in faith. Because when God calls, He doesn't leave you to figure it out alone. His provision and protection will follow you every step of the way. He is faithful. This is where the real battle lies: fear versus faith. Fear wants to keep you stuck in the past, looking back at what you're leaving behind. It makes you focus on the comfort of what you know, the safety of what's familiar, and the security of the old. Fear tells you, what if this doesn't work out? What if you fail? What if you regret leaving what's behind? Fear is a master at keeping you paralyzed, frozen in place, unable to take the steps that lead to your destiny. But faith doesn't care about what's behind. Faith doesn't focus on what you're walking away from. Faith is focused on what God is leading you toward. Faith sees the promise, sees the breakthrough, sees the abundant future that God has prepared for you. Faith says, I don't know all the details, but I know that God has a plan for me, and His plan is good. The Israelites had this exact struggle. They were delivered from Egypt out of slavery and oppression. But when it came time to move into the promised land, many of them looked back. They saw the wilderness and fear took over. They forgot the promises of God and focused on the discomfort of leaving behind the familiar, even though it was bondage. In Numbers 14:3, the Israelites said, "Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt?" They were so focused on what they were leaving behind that they couldn't see what God was preparing ahead of them. They were looking back at Egypt, a place of slavery, as if it were safer than the unknown that God had promised to bless them with. They were stuck in fear. But there were two men, Joshua and Caleb, who looked beyond their circumstances. They weren't worried about what they were leaving behind. They had faith in what was ahead. Numbers 14:9. Do not be afraid of the people of the land. The Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. They saw God's promise. They saw the victory that God had already prepared for them. Joshua and Caleb didn't focus on the giants in the land or the challenges ahead. They focused on the faithfulness of God, on the promises He made. And because of their faith, they were the only ones who got to enter the promised land. When Abraham was called by God to leave his family, his home, and his country, he could have let fear dictate his actions. He had no idea where he was going or what was waiting for him. But Abraham's faith was stronger than his fear. Hebrews 11:8 tells us, by faith Abraham, when called to go to a place, he would later receive as his inheritance obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. Abraham didn't look back. He saw what God was preparing ahead, and he stepped forward in faith. And look what happened. The Father of Nations was born out of that faith. Peter is another example. When he stepped out of the boat to walk toward Jesus on the water, everything in him should have been screaming in fear. The storm was raging, and his mind knew it was impossible to walk on water. But Peter chose faith over fear. His eyes were fixed on Jesus, and for that moment he walked on water. Fear would have kept him in the boat, but faith led him toward the miracle. As soon as he shifted his focus back to the storm, he began to sink. But when his faith was in Jesus, he moved on water. Matthew 14:29-30. Come, he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, Lord, save me. Fear sees what is behind the things you're leaving, the risks involved, the failures you've experienced. But faith sees what God has ahead of you, the future. He has already planned the breakthrough, the abundance, the restoration, the victory. Faith chooses to look forward, knowing that God has already gone ahead and prepared the way. Fear will keep you stuck in the past, but faith will propel you into the future God has already set before you. So what do you choose today? Fear or faith? Will you keep looking back, afraid of what you're leaving behind? Or will you step forward in faith, trusting that what God has ahead is greater than anything you've left behind? God's promises are waiting for you ahead. If only you'll have the faith to step forward and claim them. You were made for more. Every moment of struggle, every challenge you faced has been leading to this moment when your destiny is ready to be awakened. You were not created to live a life of mediocrity or passivity. You were created for greatness, for purpose, for a calling that goes far beyond what you can even imagine. This is your moment to wake up to what God has already set in motion for you. The past struggles and the doubts you've held on to are nothing compared to what lies ahead. This is your time to step into your true calling and purpose. If you're facing resistance, if you're feeling the weight of opposition and struggle, take heart. This is not an indication that you're on the wrong path. It's proof that you are exactly where God wants you to be. The enemy doesn't fight small things. The challenges you're encountering are a sign that your calling is significant. If the battle is fierce, it's because the impact of your life will be great. The greater the calling, the harder the opposition. But God has already equipped you to overcome. Every challenge is a stepping stone to your purpose, and every resistance is confirmation that you are walking toward the destiny God has designed for you. The transformation you are seeking starts inside. It starts in the way you think. If you want to walk in your purpose, you must first align your mind with God's truth. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Your thinking is the foundation of everything. God is ready to transform you, but it starts with your willingness to change the way you think about yourself, your purpose, and His will. When you renew your mind and align it with God's truth, your actions will follow naturally. You'll find that you're able to move forward with confidence, knowing that God is with you every step of the way. Now is the time to act. This moment is critical. God has been calling you, preparing you, and now He is waiting for your response. Don't let hesitation steal your future. The time for waiting is over. Take the next step in faith, whether that's letting go of the past, moving toward a new calling, or trusting Him with a decision that feels too big. Obey now and watch God move in your life. His provision, His protection, and His purpose are already lined up for you, but you must take that step of obedience. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. Move in faith and watch God do the impossible. Father, I come before you with a heart full of faith, trusting that you are moving in my life. I repent for the moments of hesitation, for the times I've let fear dictate my actions. Lord, I ask for the courage to step forward in obedience. Help me realign my thoughts with your truth and purpose for my life. I trust that you've already equipped me for what's ahead, and I choose to walk in the faith that you will provide and protect every step of the way. Give me the strength to face the challenges ahead, knowing that my resistance is proof of my significance in your plan. Lord, help me walk with confidence, knowing that you are with me in every moment. Will to yours, and I choose to move forward in the purpose you've called me to. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. Now go ahead. Take that step of faith. Your destiny is waiting for you.